what crap is in the background here.
Right, so we're live now, and hello everybody, and welcome to the Wild Ginger Running YouTube channel, live broadcast and podcast. Today we are talking to TV's Patrick Grant, a judge on the Great British Sewing Bee and author of several books, including Less, Stop Buying So Much Rubbish, How Having Fewer Better Things Can Make Us Happier. He's an award-winning designer, and Patrick founded Community Clothing, which I'm wearing just here if you're watching live on YouTube. He founded that in 2016 on a mission to revive the UK textile manufacturing industry and make high-quality, sustainable, affordable clothing, including sportswear. So welcome, Patrick. How are you doing today?
I am very well, thank you. Look how glorious you look in your plastic-free running gear.
Yes, I don't usually wear yellow as a ginger person, but I just thought,
I think it looks
not?
I think it does you great justice.
Thank you very much. We've got really loads of questions for you here today, Patrick. But first, we'll just do a little shout out to our sponsors, NAC Sports Nutrition. So they make energy bars and waffles and energy and recovery powders and real food purees in pouches and energy gels, which I'm currently using on my runs, and they're really, really nice. If you want to try them, use code WILDGingerRunning for 15% off at uk.nac.com. So, Patrick.
How do you spell NAC?
NAC, N-A-A-K.
Okay.
Yep. A NAC snack. If you'd like 15% off, Patrick, you can use that code. It's available.
Sadly, my days of need. Well, I used to run a lot. I did a lot of sport as a kid. I did every sport under the sun, but I was particularly good at rugby, but I did everything. You know, I did canoeing and climbing and table tennis and stuff. I mean, I played pretty much every sport under the sun for my school. But then I had to stop playing rugby because I knackered my shoulder, and I took up running, and I ran for years. And then, incredibly annoyingly, I managed to tear the cartilage in both my knees. So one in a judo accident, and one putting my foot in a rabbit hole coming off a mountain in Scotland. So two separate things. So now my long distance running days are over. But looking at all of your beautiful content and images, it makes me I loved running in the countryside. I did loads of I did several marathons. I did two road marathons. I did London twice. I did the Death Valley Marathon, which was off road in Death Valley, which was extraordinary, amazing. And I did the Low Alpine Mountain Marathon.
Wow.
Which, as you probably know, is an orienteered, just through the mountains marathon with your kit. And loved it. I did the Grizzly. I did Man versus Horse.
You've done everything.
I did all sorts of. I just really loved running in the open spaces or in the woods or wherever. But I loved running in nature, and it was all of that was sort of part of the driving force for trying to create sportswear that wasn't killing nature and buggering up the planet. So yeah, I'm very jealous. I still walk a lot and I cycle, but there's something that something so simple and pure about packing your shoes, your shorts, your vest, and wherever you go in the world. I traveled a lot, and wherever I would go, I would take my running kit and I would arrive in a hotel somewhere, wherever I was in the world, and I would run. I would see, you could see a whole city, in a very short space of time, and, great way of getting over the jet lag and all that stuff. But so I do miss it, but I get out a lot. I live just at the foot of Ingleborough and Pen y Ghent.
Oh, lovely.
So, that's the Yorkshire Dales and the Forest of Bowland are sort of on my doorstep.
Oh, the Three Peaks race for you then.
Well, a good friend of mine, actually my builder, Ian, has done the Three Peaks cyclocross like 3 or 4 times, which is absolutely crazy. And my good friend Dave, a guy that I cycle with a lot, he's done Three Peaks cyclocross. But Three Peaks, I haven't actually walked all 3. We were supposed to do it on a stag do once, and there was kind of like some people didn't even make it up. In fact, one person didn't even make it out the bunkhouse in Clapham. A couple of people dropped out halfway up Ingleborough. A couple of people turned back before we left for Whernside. And by the time we got to Whernside, there was a mass, sort of revolution. And it was like, that's it. We're not going up Pen again. So,
oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. I think you did a fair amount there.
We're all right. We're okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, it's great to know that you love running, Patrick, and because usually we do speak to runners and coaches about running on this channel, but I'm also in something called the Green Runners that you might have heard of.
I know all about the Green Runners. Yeah. I've met lots of the Green Runners.
Fantastic.
I think what is really so we started developing the kit that you're wearing about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because as you probably know, almost every single thing worn by every runner on the planet today is made of plastic.
Yeah.
And every time you run in your synthetic sports clothes, you are shedding microfibers into the environment. The production of this stuff is hellish. 10% of all world's carbon emissions come from clothing, and a big chunk of that is athletic clothes. I mean, trainers alone are 2% of the world's carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a time when most sports kit was not synthetic. When I was born in 72, I played international rugby in the late 80s, early 90s. Almost all of my kit, even then, was non-synthetic. But now, almost every piece of kit, we're just looking at the Paris Olympics. And we sent an email to our customers because 100 years ago, Paris Olympics in 1924, you look at those photographs and every single person in every single sport was wearing natural kit made from natural materials. They were wearing leather shoes. They were wearing, cotton and wool clothing. And today, Paris 2024, every single thing is plastic.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be the greenest Olympics yet, isn't it?
Yeah, but yet every single person is wearing. And the other thing about, we did the team kit for Team England at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, the uniform for the opening ceremony. One of the things they were saying to us was, so much of this stuff is worn once and then never worn again. So part of our brief designing that uniform was to make sure it was clothing that could then be reworn. So what we did some simple things like all of the badges were Velcroed on and off, so you could just wear your shore jacket as a normal jacket after the event. You could choose to put what badges on anyway. But obviously Green Runners. Who was I talking to yesterday? I was learning to scythe on Saturday, and my scything instructor is an ultra runner, and he was talking. We were talking about t-shirts. We were talking about race t-shirts, and I've got a drawer full of race t-shirts from 10Ks, half marathons, and marathons, and these things just sit there, and they will never go away. And so the idea that we had was, can we produce sportswear that has no plastic in it at all?
Yeah.
Even down, people don't even realize, almost all cotton t-shirts in the world are sewn with polyester thread. Mm-hmm. The little labels in the back, those are woven polyester. And that stuff is really, we have none. We don't have them. We have transfer in the back because
there's nothing there.
Literally there isn't a single place on the planet we could find that would do a woven cotton label.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because all of the machinery has moved exclusively over to weaving polyester for embroidered labels. So we had to go right back to the beginning. All of the elastics in the waistband are obviously elastane based, so they're elastane and polyester. So our waistband elastics are a blend of natural rubber and cotton. Mm-hmm. But we had to get our elastic supplier to go away and develop that for us from scratch. Because, again, nobody uses natural rubber because it's more expensive and, and the recovery is not quite as good initially as it is with elastane. But the problem is, with elastane, as you may well know, elastane is one of the worst substances on the planet. It does not biodegrade. Running leggings today are about 20% elastane, which means it cannot be recycled and it will never biodegrade.
Oh my goodness.
You can't even chemically degrade elastane. it just turns into a sort of soupy sludge, but you can't break it back down to its constituent parts. So it's horrendous for the planet. And it's like everything we've done and everything we've developed in terms of sportswear was done with no thought to its impact on the planet.
Yeah, definitely. And as trail runners, that's not really okay for us.
No, that's right.
We love the natural world.
If you're a trail runner, you love the nature you run in. It's a big part of why you do it. And so we wanted to produce some sports clothes that allowed people to run or go to the gym. We've made running shorts and we've made just sports shorts. So what I did for about 3 years, I went around and I bought all the best pre-synthetic sportswear I could find. So I was rummaging through charity shops and eBay. I had permanent eBay alerts, and stuff would arrive and it would say it was made out of cotton, and I'd be like, this isn't cotton, it's But eventually we built up a little library of really, really good pre-synthetic sportswear. Mostly from the sort of late 70s, some into the early 80s, mostly German sportswear brands. And we sort of took them apart and we redeveloped the fabrics with a couple of partner mills near us here in Lancashire. And then we set about just making the stuff. But it was all the simple things like, that most logos. So where you see, a tick or a 3-stripe on a thing, that is polyurethane.
And
it's
peels
an
off
oil-based. Well, it does eventually peel off.
It really quickly peels off, I find.
Well, maybe that's
peels
because
off all of mine.
I mean, they do peel off, but that is an oil-based plastic, polyurethane. It's not nice stuff. So we had to, we use a non-oil-based ink to do that logo that's on the chest. We use the same thing for the transfers on the back. And there is no, and we have to use cotton thread to sew it, which means we have to sew it more slowly, because cotton thread is not quite as strong as polyester thread. And we also have to use thread that's 3 times thicker in order to get the strength equivalent. But we had to convince our factories to work with this stuff. And they're like, well, nobody works with this. Nobody sews with cotton thread anymore. It's like, well, all right, but just give it a try, see how bad it is. And actually it turned out it wasn't anywhere near as bad as they thought it was. Yeah. And so we're really, and we're really proud that we managed to do it, because we're just a little brand. Any of the big guys could do this, but the problem is, if any of the big guys start doing this, it immediately shines a light on how bad the other stuff is. They'd have to admit that all their polyester stuff and their elastane was terrible for the planet, because otherwise, why would they be doing this stuff?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're really happy, and I very rarely run anymore, because my knee surgeon said you basically have to pack in the long running. But I went for a run last week, and it was hot. I was in London actually, and I ran down to the river and up the river and back. So I ran for about an hour. In our kit, and it was the first time I'd run in it when it was really hot, and actually it felt great. I'm like, this is fine. I've been wearing synthetic shorts for 30 years for running, and I'm like, we've worn it, we've tested it, we've tried it, but that was the first time I'd run in it when it was really hot, and I was like, these feel great. So yeah, we're really proud that we've done it. It's just, it's an important, I think it's also an important conversation, because there are so many people, as you rightly mentioned, green runners are trying to do amazing things to decarbonize and reduce the environmental harm of everything around the world of running, not just in the kit. But I remember Inez Fitzgerald not going to the World Championships because it was in Australia, because she didn't want the carbon footprint. I'm like, bravo. Wow. Well,
yeah.
That really takes commitment, because that is a big sacrifice to make. And I think it's that sort of thing. And in the book, I mentioned some of these guys that are doing great stuff. I went to the running show at the NEC last year, and the Reaction Collective had collected together various different people, including like the guy from Pair Ups, whose name I've now forgotten.
Oh yeah,
was
I
like
met him too. Yeah.
Was repairing people's trainers.
Yeah.
And there was some. I saw recently that Rerun sadly has stopped doing what it was doing, which I think is really sad. But it's so hard to do anything in the face of the giant businesses that have got so much power. We've been selling our community clothing organic athletic for 6 months now, but it's hard because all the professional athletes in whatever sport have all got kit sponsorship deals from the biggies that mean that they're really not supposed to be talking about other people's stuff.
Yeah, or slagging off their own stuff and saying
or certainly slagging off.
Eco-friendly actually not
is. Magazines as well. I mean, we were really lucky. Actually, Women's Health put us in the magazine last month. But again, the big brands are their big advertisers. That's where their money comes from.
I know, it's so hard, isn't it? Because money and greed just drives everything and everyone. And I just wonder what you think about a lot of the outdoor companies now are kind of switching on to that. Everyone wants to be green. Like, yes, green's great. Let's sell on green. But a lot of it's kind of a bit greenwashy. And I just wonder how you feel about stuff like when brands say, oh, 50% of the laces of this shoe are recycled. How do you feel about recycled fabrics? Because what I'm hearing from some people in the know is that recycled fabrics isn't really it's a drop in the ocean compared to the actual manufacturing practices. Yeah,
well, I mean, really, you look at the world of clothing, and sports clothing and regular clothing are pretty much the same. You've kind of got two camps. You've got Camp A, which is all the big guys, and their view is we can sort of tinker with the model, and we can make it appear like we're doing things better. So using plant-based synthetics, bamboo viscose, pineapple leather, all this sort of stuff. Recycled polyester. All of that stuff is just sort of fiddling. The most they will ever do is improve their model by kind of 20%. You might drop the carbon footprint, but at the same time, what they are trying to do is sell you more. So any good that is done by the kind of slight reduction in the badness of the product they make is sort of overwhelmed by the fact that they're actually pushing you to consume more stuff, and also that the quality of many of our clothes, and included in that our sports clothes, because I still wear synthetic running shoes, but the ones I've got are a woven top, standard urethane foam with a knitted top, or a part knitted top, but they've worn out. The top has worn out so quickly. I'm like, the quality and the longevity of the product that's being made is dropped off quite considerably. So you've got that camp that just want to keep things going exactly as it is, and those businesses are never going to change. You can't change Nike or Adidas. They are a volume-based, consumption-based, more stuff, new stuff all the time. Or, Adidas's single-use running shoe. I mean, like, how blind is that to the way the world is supposed to be? All this fanfare. We've done literally a single-use plastic shoe. Like, hang on, and you think that's a good thing, lads?
Yeah. And how much does that cost? Who's got the money for that?
Well, exactly. Well, some people maybe.
Crazy people.
But it's like the whole idea that you should make a shoe that can only be worn once. Like, it just says we don't give a shit about the planet, is what it says.
Yeah.
And it's plastic, and it will never ever go away. That shoe will sit in landfill for the rest of time, or it'll be in a dump somewhere, or it'll be incinerated, and it's just, none of it's good. So you've got the kind of legacy system that cannot be turned around. They might say, look, we're making this shoe out of salvaged fishing net, or we can as you say, the laces on this shoe are made out of 50% recycled polyester. Whoop-de-doo, it's still a dead-end system. You know, once that recycled lace has been used once and you know, worn out, there's nowhere else for it to go. You can't recycle it back into something else. I mean, that's the thing. You could make clothes out of recycled material, but once you've done that, that is a dead end. Right now, there is nowhere that can be turned, no way that can be turned back into something usable. So it can only go in the bin.
Yeah, and it's still also, plastic in the bin.
Yeah, the world has had enough of, you know, there is already too much secondhand, inexpensive sportswear on the planet. You know, we used to ship it all down to sub-Saharan Africa, but it's like they don't want it anymore. I read that, you know, they're like, we've had enough. Like, you can keep your secondhand sports gear because we've already got mountains of it that you can actually literally see from space.
Yeah, scary.
So I was reading somewhere about the number of, there's like 1 billion football shirts on the planet, or some, I may have that number wrong, but there's some extraordinary number of football shirts, because every single season now, every football club comes up with 3 new football shirts.
Wow.
You know, home, away, and the other one. And they spend, you know, they spend enormous amounts of money trying to get you to buy them all.
Yeah.
And they're a ton of money, and they're made for you know, these shirts cost pennies to make, and they're selling them for sort of 70, 80, 90 quid.
Yeah.
So there's that, the legacy industry that's not going anywhere. And then on the other team, you know, Camp B over there's all the new models. There's the reuse models, there's the circular models, there's the sharing models, there's the rentals, there's the take backs, there's making old things, you know, rubbish shoes. Rubbish shoes, I think, was the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
Also, they look brilliant, but it's like, make something new out of something old, and that is a way forward. That is a model that is good for the planet. Like, it takes so much more effort and so much more creativity to make something new out of something old, and the value is all going to the maker. You know, the money's not going to some marketing company in London or some influencer in wherever. You know, the money's going to the people that make it. So there are loads. You know, we're doing a bit of work with Retribe in Sheffield, who are making kit out of old you know, salvage festival tents. And there's a company called Cricket, which is CRIKIT, which is out of Yorkshire. It's actually Yorkshire Cricket Club have started like a second-hand cricket equipment kind of brand that they're, you know, giving away to schools. And there's tons and tons, like what is really appealing to me, what feels really optimistic to me at the moment, or what makes me optimistic rather, is people are thinking differently. People are thinking big, different, system-changing models.
Yeah. And
people are, and consumers are starting to take notice of it in a really good way. And I think, you know, organizations like Green Runners, you know, I can't remember the last time I looked, but, you know, there are thousands of people that are following them now. And, you know, it's starting to change people's minds, because, you know, we've got to be able to do all of this and not fuck the planet up, basically.
Well, if we want to stay on the planet doesn't care whether we live or die. I think that's the main thing that annoys me. It's like, oh, save the planet. It's not save the planet, save the human being on the planet. Because the planet doesn't care. Like, if we mess it up, we've messed it up for us. The planet will bounce back. In geological time, we're like a blink in the eye. But what I did notice about your sportswear range, really refreshingly, is that it's really small. I'm just going to put a picture up on the screen. Here's the women's wear here, and then we've got some menswear as well, just here. There's only about 4 different items in the sportswear range. So there's like a t-shirt, which I'm wearing now. There's a pair of shorts, which I'm also wearing now, and there's a vest, and there's a hoodie. So I noticed that's a small range. They're not available in lots of different colourways. You've said in your TED Talk, the Exeter TED Talk that I watched, which is very good, Google it, everybody, I'll put a link to it as well, that you don't change seasonally. So you just make them, and then presumably when you have the next innovation, you make something slightly differently. And the big thing is they're reasonably priced as well, because I think a lot of super ethical clothing, it can be quite expensive compared to the prices we're now used to paying for clothes, which has not, it's kind of a new thing, isn't it, paying a tiny amount for clothes. So yeah, that's the 4 things that I noticed about your sportswear
again,
range.
it was
Would
important, really important part of the way community clothing is a bit different from sort of most clothing brands, because really fundamentally it was set up to do 2 things, one of which was to make good quality clothing at an affordable price, and the second thing was to create jobs in the UK. So, if we're going to create jobs in the UK, we need people to be able to afford our product. There are lots of lovely, high quality British made clothing brands, but most ordinary folk cannot afford them. Even at a stretch, they would find it difficult. And, I had a very successful business at Debenhams for years. And so I know what prices normal people can afford. I mean, that's not to say that everybody can afford our stuff, because lots of people are, sadly, there are lots of people that are much worse off than the average. But, I think the average person will find that our stuff is affordable. And that was a very, very conscious decision. So what we had to do was create a business model that didn't spend its money on all the normal stuff. So you're right, we don't have seasonal collections. So, what we did was we spent 4 years developing the right things. So we've got a running short, we've got a sports short, and then we've got a heavyweight sports short, which is basically like the rugby shorts that I used to play in, which are like sort of bomb-proof, they'll last 50 years kind of cotton shorts. And then, we've got a vest, we've got a sleeveless, we've got a t-shirt, and we do the tops in a breathable and a non-breathable, and then we do black, and then 2 colors, and we will keep doing those until people decide that they don't want them anymore. But every product we design, we try and design it to have at least a 20-year shelf life. So it does so many good things. It means there's never any waste on fabrics. It means we never have to put the stuff on sale, because we don't ever have old stuff that we need to move on so that we can bring new things in. It means, when we get we can produce our fabrics in big quantities, because we know we're always going to be going back to the same fabrics, which means our fabric mills get much better orders from us that are easier to produce and more economical to produce. And it also means we don't have to reshoot everything all the time. If you're a normal brand, I remember going to ASOS's HQ years ago, and they had 7 photo studios in the office, and they were photographing product all the time. There were like 30 models in the building every day, and they were constantly photographing product and filming product. We do ours once. I mean, we shot all of our sportswear down in Bournemouth. A friend of mine did a piece of theatre about plastic pollution. She's a dancer called Claire Benson, and I'd seen that she'd done this thing, and I was like, maybe we can get Claire's dancers to wear our sportswear.
Cool.
So we all of the images and the film that we did to launch our sportswear was all shot down in Bournemouth for a tiny budget. Mostly lots of, volunteers and people of all ages and shapes and sizes.
That's what I liked about your clothing as well. Like, there was some pants models, and you had like really big pants models, thin pants models, really old people, young people, not too young, obviously, pants models, but like it was just really refreshing, like different colors, different like people with, tattoos, birthmarks, scars, teeth falling out, everything.
We never retouch our photos. Again, that's expensive. Also, we take the view that we design the clothes so that they actually fit nicely. They're made out of really good fabrics, so the fabrics look nice. So we don't have to spend loads of money making those images look really good. which again, it saves us money. So yeah, you know, in a normal business, if you spent £1, less than 25p of that would go to the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Well, all of the manufacturing. So growing the fiber, spinning it, dyeing it, weaving it, cutting and sewing the clothing. All of that in a normal business would be less than 25p out of the pound you spend. About 60 odd p would be the marketing, the branding, the events, the influencers, the design, the development, the new stuff all the time. That's what they spend their money on. And then there's the tax. And in our model, we flip it. So in ours, if you spend £1 with us, 65p goes into making the product.
Yeah.
We take about 17p for everything we do, and then there's the tax.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different model. But we had to, basically, I was like, if we're going to do this, we have to do this without spending the marketing money.
Yeah.
Because that's the big difference. And so how do we do that? Well, the first thing we can do is we can just make a nice product. Because if you make something that's good and the price is good, people will buy it and then come back to it. So our sports, we'll probably sell 35,000 pairs of socks this year because our socks are really good and they like start at £6. And for a totally premium sock, like people buy our socks and they're like, oh my God, these feel like £20 socks. And we're like, well, they are £20 socks. It's just that we don't mark them up like everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. So, and you're presumably, you're not living in a castle with a yacht and a
I can guarantee you, Claire, I am not living in a castle. I am living.
But you have got a yacht.
Yeah, but it's this big, and I float it in my bath. Yeah, no yachts, no castles. I have a 10-year-old Prius. And I mostly ride a bicycle, most of which are at least 20 years old. I haven't bought it. In fact, the last new bike I actually got second hand from a guy in my triathlon club in Oxford when did I live there? In the early 2000s. So I took it to the bike shop last year, and they were like, oh my God, it's a classic. I'm like, it's my newest bike. But yeah, we sort of live. I've just been invited to go and talk to the B Corp festival, and we sort of live those rules. Like we're not paying ourselves big money. I've put my salary in my book. I get paid £50,000 a year to run community clothing.
Yeah, and which is very a reasonable salary. Like I've never earned that
I live
much,
very
but
simply.
I know that,
I don't buy a lot of new. I mean, I do get the odd bit of free clothing, so that does help.
And it lasts forever.
But yeah, I'm very lucky that I have a job that I really enjoy, and it makes me feel really good to do it. So I don't like a lot of people. I think spend money as a kind of alternative to doing things that make them happy. I think the great thing about most people who run is running makes you feel good. I mean, it actually alters the chemistry in your brain, so it genuinely makes you feel good. But also being healthy and being outdoors and doing all of these things, just makes us feel good. And I think for a lot of people, shopping has become a substitute for other things that bring us happiness. A lot of people, again, have jobs that are a lot less meaningful than some of the jobs we might have had in the past. Way back, everybody worked either in agriculture or in manufacturing, and those jobs, felt important because you were literally keeping your community alive and helping them live well. And as time has gone on, we've become further and further disconnected from nature in our working lives. For a lot of people,
we're just cogs in a wheel.
You seem to have absolutely nailed that. But a lot of people have jobs that are disconnected from anything that's physical and disconnected from anything that's connected with nature, and it leaves us just feeling a little bit hollow. And this is one of the reasons why community clothing wants to create jobs making things, because making jobs do make us feel better. It's been proven that both mental and physical health is improved by manual jobs, especially jobs where you're using your hands and your mind.
Yeah.
It leaves you feeling more fulfilled.
Yeah. I'd like to show you what I did in front of the Olympics the other day. I had a hole in my back pocket of my jeans.
You've embroidered a patch.
I did a patch.
Amazing.
And now I'm just really worried that the thread was not cotton and that was polyester. But I did the other side as well, just to make it matching. I don't think I'll be getting a job in one of your factories anytime soon because.
Well, you know what?
It's really rubbish. But I'm really proud of myself for that, and I really enjoyed doing it. Like you said, I really enjoyed making that.
Actually, making things, and I think especially fixing things, it's quite a primal feeling of happiness.
Yeah.
You know, in order to survive in our, the early days of man, making things and fixing things, being able to use tools was such a fundamental part of actually keeping ourselves and our families and our communities alive, that it's still in there. Yeah. It's still in us somewhere. And fixing stuff just makes us feel really good. And every time you wear those now, you will remember how it felt to fix them, and you will feel really happy. You'll be like, okay, yeah. And what will happen eventually is that, that patch will probably wear out again, and then you'll have to do another patch over the top of it. And each time you do that, it will become more meaningful to you as an object.
And I did it watching the Olympics as well. So that was like, I will remember now the Olympics every time I do that patch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly the same with making things. I think I remember taking I remember taking my darning kit to Japan because, I don't know what, I was like, I had a jumper, my favorite jumper that needed darning. And I got to Japan early. The flights all land really early in the morning in Tokyo, and they don't normally let you check into your hotel till lunchtime. So I sat in the lobby of this hotel in Tokyo and darned my jumper. And I can remember exactly where I can remember the view. I could see Mount Fuji in the distance.
Lovely.
But yeah, all of this stuff just brings it creates meaning in the things we have, and the more meaning the things we have to us, the more likely we are to keep them for a long time, to cherish them, to enjoy them every time we see them. I mean, there's lots of little things that just give me a great amount of joy. I'm just looking at the stuff on my desk. I can remember where all of them came from. I've got a little Japanese. I seem to buy things in Japan because they're always so nice. But when we have connections, it boosts our enjoyment of the object. One of the things that people like about our clothes is that, we tell you where they're made and who's made them, and that brings us closer to them, and increases our enjoyment of wearing them. And the start of the first little chapter in my book is all about just the few things that I have. Many of them I've had for a really long time. There's things that I've had for 40 years that I still really enjoy using or wearing, sitting on, etc. I'm just looking around my desk is from the 1960s, my chair's from the 60s. I've got a thing there that's a sort of gobletty thing that's, I don't know, it's probably 150 years old. My lamps, everything's, there's almost nothing in here that I bought new, apart from making books, and the bookcase, but that's office furniture.
And that's really interesting that you say about just having like one or two things, like a small amount of things, and really appreciating them. And Sally Gilson, who I know is watching live right now, so this will be an interesting question for her to have answered by you. She's one of my patrons, so the patrons get to ask questions to you. She says she has two main reasons for buying new running clothes only. And the first one is fluctuating weight. So that's not a problem because she just vacuum packs whatever she's not wearing. She's recently had a really bad injury, like an ankle break, that she had to be mountain rescued off the mountain for, so she's not running at the moment. So that's one reason for fluctuating weight.
Right.
So you can deal with that one.
Big up the mountain rescue guys.
Yeah, we did. We interviewed her last week, if you want to listen to that one. The second one is a bit more of an issue because within about a season of wearing a top, she says it really stinks and she can't get rid of the smell. Even the kit, which is made of merino wool. She's tried baking soda, but have you got any tips? Because the tops still have plenty of wear in them, but she can't wear them in company because they just, you know, like when you put them on, they smell immediately. They've got to be made of man-made fibres, haven't they, those?
Yeah, it is a problem. It is a problem, and I think it's I mean, I'm very fortunate because I have a terrible sense of smell. So Sally can hang out with me in her slightly pongy running kit. I think it is one of those things where society, like it, until relatively recently, we hardly ever washed our clothes.
I hardly ever wash mine, just a caveat here. My sister thinks I'm disgusting.
We have been kind of conditioned. My sister, God bless her, washes my nephew's clothes. Like, she's doing 2 washes a day in that house. When I was a kid, I mean, I don't remember my clothes ever going through the washing machine very much. It was like, you're covered in mud, well, tough luck, out you go again. And I think, again, partly, you know, Unilever and Procter and Gamble are absolutely desperate that we think that smelling fresh is part of being a good human being. You know,
cleanliness is next to godliness.
Like any animal, we smell a bit from time to time, and the hotter it gets, sometimes the worse, you know, the smellier we get. But actually, I mean, especially if we're outside, you know, if you're in a gym, in a close packed thing, maybe it's a little bit more problematic. And maybe you want to wear clothes that you're less, you know, nobody wants to feel self-conscious when they're at the gym. But I think for outside, if you're outside and you happen to be standing next to somebody and you know, you're a little bit whiffy, just own it. Like, you know, I'm just doing the planet a bloody favor by not washing my stuff all the time, and I'm keeping my stuff for a long time. So, you know, wear the smell as a badge of honor. Like, you know, I mean, that makes me absolutely mad. I watch these adverts for fabric fresheners. You're like, that's not fresh. That's just a load of synthetic chemistry that's like totally unnecessary. We don't need those chemicals on the planet. We don't need our sofas to smell like summer meadows. Like, also, they don't smell like summer meadows. They smell like chemicals that are supposed to smell a bit like summer meadows. So it's obviously those washing machine companies and those washing powder companies, they want us all to believe that we have to smell fresh and sweet all the time. And it's just not true. Like, we just have to be confident that it's okay. Yeah.
I suggested to Sally that a company should invent, instead of elbow patches, armpit patches. So you take that area out, like this is a detachable area here that you can just unpick, and then you can just sew a new bit on. But
like a sort of gusset piece.
Yeah, like a new underarm bit, so that when this bit gets really smelly, you just replace it with a new one, so that not the whole garment is being replaced. But with this t-shirt, if I was to wear this running for a whole year, would that start to smell under the armpits, or because it's natural, would it not?
I think the chemistry of why we some people just don't smell. Like, I don't. I have no sense of smell, but my girlfriend has a very acute sense of smell. I don't wear deodorant, and I haven't worn deodorant for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Luckily, some days I am like, oh yeah, but you know, most of the time I don't. It's really, really, really personal. And some people's everybody's chemistry is different. And, you know, it's like the food we eat, you know, affects the way we smell, and, you know, what we're putting into our bodies affects the way we smell. I'm not it's not something I'm an expert in. Okay. So it is possible, but it's not, you know, fibers will absorb chemicals, you know, in different ways. In some it is more permanent than in others. And in synthetics, it tends to be a more permanent, you know, it embeds itself more permanently in the fiber. But it really is. It's not an area I can claim any expertise in.
Okay, well, maybe this is an area of your expertise. Tadeusz over in Ireland, he says, "I'll check out the website. I am wondering how anatomical the sock shape is for the toes."
Well, it is. You know, it is broadly anatomical. You know, we've got. It's bigger in the middle and smaller in the bottom. But of course, again, all of our feet are different. So, I know people that have got long middle toes, some people with tiny toes, some people with long toes. I've got quite long toes. It's like we're all of our toes are different, and so we try with the guys that make our socks only make running socks. They're down in West Sussex, and all they produce is sports socks, and I think they're super comfortable. I've worn very expensive sports socks because occasionally people gift me things. So, I've worn £30 sports socks, and I wear our sports socks, which are £6.50, £7, and there isn't a great deal of difference that I can tell. But I think it's one of those, we try and make a garment, whatever garment it is, we try and make it so that it fits a broad range of people, a relatively broad range of people. But you can't, everyone will find something that really works well for them. So again, with something like a sock, if you try them and they aren't quite right, then, you might just have to try a different one. But they are very good at making sports socks. We don't do the ones with, ours don't have loads and loads of different panels within them. Obviously they're cushioned on the bottom and thinner on the top of the foot. But we don't go mad for all the different panels because we're trying to make a sock that's also, reasonably affordable as well. But they are, we get a lot of amazing feedback. I'm just looking at them now on our sports socks.
I need to try the socks.
Yeah.
And so you're at the moment just wearing making t-shirts and the sort of baggy type shorts and the vest. The t-shirt fits really well, but I've got really big legs. So when I run in any short which isn't like a tight cycling short, it chafes. So I can't actually run in these lovely shorts that I have been given by you guys. I'll just show everybody the shorts. They look like this. So I can't actually run in these because I'll chafe. So are you thinking of expanding? Would you ever think of expanding at all into those ones that like socks around your legs, like thigh socks?
The problem with those
or are they too elastane-y?
They are very elastane.
Oh no.
Yeah, most of those are between 15 and 20% elastane.
Yeah. Oh, that's a shame.
Anything over 2% elastane cannot be recycled.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, we're trying to, we've deliberately got rid of all the elastane. It is very tough to do that because everybody is so used to the feeling of tightness that you get with a heavily elastane based
like a legging
jersey, a legging, or cycling shorts, running, tight running shorts, leggings, running tights, whatever you want to call them. All of that stuff is full of elastane. The problem now is that they're in order to make them cheaper and cheaper as everything gets more expensive, running clothes haven't really got any more expensive in the last 10, 15 years. And that's basically because they're making them for less. And in order to make them from less, they're sort of part of it is moving it to cheaper places all the time. So they're constantly moving factories around to places where the labor is cheaper. But they're also slightly using lower grade materials, slightly less material in them. They're getting thinner, because the thinner you make the fabric, the cheaper it is, because obviously the less material is in it. But all of that stuff is very UV sensitive, so the recovery will fail. The stretch will last a while, but then it will stop. And once it's stopped, it can't be recovered because it's in the chemistry of the fiber, not in olden days. Things like the original Ron Hill Tracksters, those didn't contain stretch material. That was just the stretch in the jersey. It was the way they were knitted originally that allowed them to work, but they were always a bit baggier.
Yeah, so, I had a pair. I had several pairs in my early hiking career.
Well, see, this is the thing. If you want those super tight leggings or super tight running shorts, you have to accept that you're doing something bad for the planet.
Yeah.
So it's a choice. Like partly, I mean, everybody's body shapes, thigh shapes, the way the way all of that is set up is very different from everybody. And I mean, ultimately, you've got to run in something that makes you feel comfortable, because otherwise you're just not going to run, and then that's a bad thing. But change the bits you can change. Don't feel bad that you can't make every bit of what you do perfect. Yeah. If you can change 2 out of the 4 things you wear, or if you're wearing, we're developing some lightweight rainwear that again is completely synthetic free at the moment. Wow. There's this amazing fabric that's now made in Switzerland. It did used to be made not far from us here in Lancashire. That was developed originally for pilots' immersion suits in the Second World War. Oh, wow. And the way it works is because cotton absorbs water, what they did was they created a very, very tightly woven fabric using cotton. And then when water hits that cotton, the fibers swell by about 20%. And that closes off any porosity in the fabric. Wow. And makes it totally waterproof. Wow, that's amazing. So it means it's breathable. Wow. When it's not soaking wet, but when it's wet, it actually feels a little bit stiffer. But we're using the lightest weight version of that. Obviously, we have to get rid of plastic zips, all the zip tapes, all your zip tapes in everything you do. They're all plastics as well. Taped seams. Tape seams are sealed. Usually they're a urethane tape. So we're removing all of that to make a lightweight, waterproof running jacket. I'm so interested in that. But also because things like, if you've got a rib, so the ribs on our sweatshirt, so that bit there, the bit at the bottom. For our normal clothes, we make them with no polyester. Most rib, even on 100% cotton sweatshirt, this little bit here and that stuff will contain polyester. So even if it's 100% cotton, it will probably have polyester in here and here. And that is because it has better recovery. Now, on ours, we don't put any cotton in. But if you're doing a running jacket, you really want, certainly I want that wrist to be a tight fit, and I want the waist to be a tight fit. So we're using the elastic that we use in our shorts, which is natural rubber. We're using that. So we're just in the process of developing that. So but it's like, we will add things as we go along. But if you like, what do people wear to run in? They wear a running shoe, they wear a running sock, they wear a legging, they wear a short, they wear a t-shirt or a vest, and they wear a lightweight running jacket. Like, if you can change even a couple of those for something better, then great. You are moving things in the right direction. Yeah. And there are better materials as well. There are, polyester. Polyesters are pretty, recycled polyester is still worse than any of the natural materials in terms of its carbon footprint. Cotton, you've got water issues. So we use organic cotton. Also there are pesticide issues with cotton. There are herbicides. There's in industrial cotton production, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. So again, trying to avoid that. But like, we can't all live perfect lives, and trying to achieve that is going to make us feel terrible about ourselves. So, give yourself a break, but do the 1 or 2 things that you can change. Lots of people I know find our shorts really comfortable. That's great, but they might not like our t-shirts. So, we can all make little improvements. Yeah. Some of us can make really big improvements. Some people really, really go the whole hog. I mean, we work with an organization called Fiber Shed, which is amazing, but it's like, their view is bioregionalism. You can only wear what you can grow in your bioregion. Wow. It all has to be made completely, by hand. And that's great if you've got the skill and you live somewhere where cotton grows. Yeah. Right, but, if you live in Yorkshire, basically you're wearing quite, sort of scratchy. Or
a sheep. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
I really liked your phrase, instead of being a consumer, be a participant. And I think you've just given us, I was going to ask you the question, what is the most important thing we need to look for when making ethical and eco-minded choices with our clothing? But I think you've just really summed that up there. Just choose one or two things that you can do differently. And then the following year, maybe there's another couple of things you can do differently.
Yeah, we're all, people in this space are constantly striving to make things that are both affordable and good choices. There's no point saying to people, stop wearing your, synthetic shorts. I want you to wear these shorts that are made out of, Yorkshire carpet wool, hemp. We're doing textiles with hemp and flax and wool. We actually, I had a meeting on Sunday with a guy who's developed a really nice worsted spun yarn using local fleece from around Ingleborough, and it's got a lovely handle, but he's had to worsted spin it to give it that nice smooth handle, which is much more expensive than woolen spinning it. So there are things that we can do to make otherwise unusable materials palatable. I mean, 500 years ago, we all wore wool and linen because normal people could not afford imported cotton or silk.
Yeah. Average
Joes in this country, we did everything in those fabrics. I mean, even interestingly, I was the earliest ultra marathon was run in 1921, and they ran it in leather shoes. It's like we can put up with quite a lot.
Yeah.
You just have to be a bit tougher. There's an organization called the Rough Stuff Fellowship, which is a cycling club that was founded, I think, in the 50s, and it's got the most amazing photo archive, and it's got all their members, and half of them look like they're in their 60s, and they're like cycling up Everest on a steely tourer with wearing woolen trousers and leather shoes. And you're like, you can do this.
Yeah.
You can do this. You just have got used to the comfort and ease and convenience of modern stuff.
But you can't really go backwards because everybody will just laugh at you, and social shame is a big thing for a lot of people. Like if you turn up smelling in a hemp bag, then I totally agree with everything you're saying, but I think the world has turned and now we need to sort of gently turn it back again. As you say, you have to make it feel like we're moving forward in and I think that's the interesting thing about what people like rubbish shoes are doing. They're making it cool to wear wear rubbish. Yes.
And that is a big cultural shift. A lot of young people, there's a thing that's trending on TikTok, and I can't remember the name of it's like a sort of anti-consumption hashtag.
Cool.
And then it is becoming cool to say no to consumption of fast fashion. Absolutely it is. And so it allows us to feel good about turning up in our 25-year-old running shorts. I mean, I've got running shorts in my.
I don't care personally, but there's people that will care.
We are being given permission by society to behave very differently, and I think that is a super positive thing.
Yeah, that's a fantastic thing to say. And on that note, we are coming up to the hour now, so we need to wind it up. But just want to say, how can we follow you and everything that you do, Patrick? Are you on Instagram, or is it best that people just check out the website? Where should people go?
Yeah, Community Clothing is on Instagram and on Facebook. And we have a website. You can sign up. We do a weekly email newsletter that usually most of the time I write. You can follow me personally. I'm on Instagram. I'm also on the platform formerly known as Twitter, but I'm not really on there very much.
I refuse to call it that too.
I'm there on Instagram. Most of my pictures on Instagram are usually mountains, trees, occasionally like craft fairs, but that's about, I'm not prolific on Instagram because life is busy, but I am on there. And but yeah, you know, we're easily found. We occasionally, I mean, I'm doing lots of talks and things around the country as well as part of the book tour.
Wonderful.
So the book tour kicks off again. It's sort of stopped for the summer, which is quite nice, but it kicks off again September, October. I'm doing dates around the country, but again, we announce those. Community Clothing kind of will periodically say where we're going to be, and I'm out there. You can find me, and you can find Community Clothing all over the place.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thanks so much, Patrick. We really appreciate your time today. It has been absolutely brilliant chatting with you. And I just hope this talk inspires lots more people to just take an interest in how their clothes are made and where the clothes are made, not just the running ones, and also to buy your book less as well. So I've put a link in the film description and the podcast show notes below. So everybody take a look and do buy the book.
Thank you so much, Claire. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Bye, everyone.